The McDonnell Douglas F-4 Phantom II is a tandem two-seat, twin-engine, all-weather, long-range supersonic jet interceptor aircraft fighter bomber originally developed for the United States Navy by McDonnell Aircraft. It first entered service in 1960 with the U.S. Navy. Proving highly adaptable, it was also adopted by the U.S. Marine Corps and the U.S. Air Force, and by the mid-1960s had become a major part of the respective air wings. The Phantom is a large fighter with a top speed of over Mach 2.2. It can carry more than 18,000 pounds of weapons on 9 external hardpoints, including air-to-air missiles, air-to-ground missiles, and various bombs. The F-4, like other interceptors of its time, was designed without an internal cannon. Later models incorporated an M61 Vulcan rotary cannon. Beginning in 1959, it set 15 world records for in-flight performance, including an absolute speed record and an absolute altitude record. During the Vietnam War, the F-4 was used extensively. It served as the principal air superiority fighter for both the Navy and Air Force, and became important in the ground attack and aerial reconnaissance roles late in the war. The Phantom has the distinction of being the last U.S. fighter flown to attain A status in the 20th century. During the Vietnam War, the U.S. Air Force had 1 pilot and 2 weapon systems officers, and the U.S. Navy had 1 pilot and 1 radar intercept officer become aces by achieving 5 aerial kills against enemy fighter aircraft. The F-4 continued to form a major part of U.S. military air power throughout the 1970s and 1980s, being gradually replaced by more modern aircraft such as the F-15 Eagle and F-16 in the U.S. Air Force, the Grumman F-14 Tomcat in the U.S. Navy, and the F-A-18 Hornet in the U.S. Navy and U.S. Marine Corps. The F-4 Phantom II remained in use by the U.S. in the reconnaissance and Wild Weasel roles in the 1991 Gulf War, finally leaving service in 1996. It was also the only aircraft used by both U.S. flight demonstration teams, the USAF Thunderbirds and the U.S. Navy Blue Angels. The F-4 was also operated by the armed forces of 11 other nations. Israeli Phantoms saw extensive combat in several Arab-Israeli conflicts, while Iran used its large fleet of Phantoms in the Iran-Iraq War. Phantoms remain in frontline service with 7 countries, and in use as a target drone in the U.S. Air Force. Phantom production ran from 1958 to 1981, with a total of 5,195 built, making it the most numerous American supersonic military aircraft. Development. Origins. In 1952, McDonnell's chief of aerodynamics, Dave Lewis, was appointed by CEO Jim McDonnell to be the company's preliminary design manager. With no new aircraft competitions on the horizon, internal studies concluded the Navy had the greatest need for a new and different aircraft type, an attack fighter. In 1953, McDonnell Aircraft began work on revising its F-3H Demon naval fighter, seeking expanded capabilities and better performance. The company developed several projects, including a variant powered by a Wright J-67 engine, and variants powered by 2 Wright J-65 engines, or 2 General Electric J-79 engines. The J-79 powered version promised a top speed of Mach 1.97. On the 19th of September 1953, McDonnell approached the United States Navy with a proposal for the Super Demon. Uniquely, the aircraft was to be modular. It could be fitted with 1 or 2 seat noses for different missions, with different nose cones to accommodate radar, photo cameras, 420mm cannon, or 56 FFAR unguided rockets in addition to the 9 hardpoints under the wings and the fuselage. The Navy was sufficiently interested to order a full-scale mock-up of the F-3 HGH, but felt that the upcoming Grumman XF-9 F-9 and Vortex F-8 U-1 already satisfied the need for a supersonic fighter. The McDonnell design was therefore reworked into an all-weather fighter bomber with 11 external hardpoints for weapons, and on the 18th of October 1954, the company received a letter of intent for 2 U-1 prototypes. On the 26th of May 1955, 4 Navy officers arrived at the McDonnell offices and, within an hour, presented the company with an entirely new set of requirements. Because the Navy already had the Douglas A-4 Skyhawk for ground attack and F-8 Crusader for dogfighting, the project now had to fulfill the need for an all-weather fleet defense interceptor. A second crewman was added to operate the powerful radar XF-4H1 prototype. The XF-4H1 was designed to carry 4 semi-recessed ARM-N6 Sparrow 3 radar-guided missiles, and to be powered by 2 J-79GE8 engines. As in the McDonnell F-101 Voodoo, the engines sat low in the fuselage to maximize internal fuel capacity and ingested air through fixed geometry intakes. The thin section wing had a leading edge sweep of 45 degrees and was equipped with blown flaps for better low-speed handling. Wind tunnel testing had revealed lateral instability requiring the addition of 5 degrees dihedral to the wings. To avoid redesigning the titanium central section of the aircraft, McDonnell engineers angled up only the outer portions of the wings by 12 degrees, which averaged to the required 5 degrees over the entire wingspan. The wings also received the distinctive dogtooth for improved control at high angles of attack. The all-moving tailplane was given 23 degrees of anhedral to improve control at high angles of attack while still keeping the tailplane clear of the engine exhaust. In addition, air intakes were equipped with variable geometry ramps to regulate airflow to the engines at supersonic speeds. All-weather intercept capability was achieved thanks to the APQ-50 radar. To accommodate carrier operations, the landing gear was designed to withstand landings with a sink rate of 23 feet per second, while the nose strut could extend by some 20 in to increase angle of attack at takeoff. On the 25th of July 1955, the Navy ordered 2 XF-4H1 test aircraft and 5 YF-4H1 pre-production examples. The Phantom made its maiden flight on the 27th of May 1958 with Robert C. Little at the controls. A hydraulic problem precluded retraction of the landing gear, but subsequent flights went more smoothly. Early testing resulted in redesign of the air intakes, including the distinctive addition of 12,500 holes to bleed off the slow-moving boundary layer air from the surface of each intake ramp. Series production aircraft also featured splitter plates to divert the boundary layer away from the engine intakes. The aircraft soon squared off against the XF-8U-3 Crusader 3. Due to operator workload, the Navy wanted a 2-seat aircraft, and on the 17th of December 1958 the F-4H was declared a winner. Delays with the J-79GE8 engines meant that the first production aircraft were fitted with J-79GE2 and -2A engines, each having 16,100 lb-f of afterburning thrust. In 1959, the Phantom began carrier suitability trials with the first complete launch recovery cycle performed on the 15th of February 1960 from Independence. There were proposals to name the F-4H Satan and Mithras. In the end, the aircraft was given the less controversial name Phantom II, the first Phantom being another McDonnell jet fighter, the F-H-1 Phantom. The Phantom II was briefly given the designation F-110A and the name Spectre by the USAF, but neither name was officially used. Production. Early in production, the radar was upgraded to the Westinghouse and APQ-72, and an APG-50 with a larger radar antenna, necessitating the bulbous nose, and the canopy was reworked to improve visibility and make the rear cockpit less claustrophobic. During its career, the Phantom underwent many changes in the form of numerous variants developed. The USAF received Phantoms as the result of Defense Secretary Robert McNamara's push to create a unified fighter for all branches of the military. After an F-4B won the Operation High Speed fly-off against the Convair F-106 Delta Dart, the USAF borrowed two naval F-4Bs, temporarily designating them F-110A Spectre in January 1962, and developed requirements for their own version. Unlike the Navy's focus on interception, the USAF emphasized a fighter-bomber role. With McNamara's unification of designations on 18 September 1962, the Phantom became the F-4, with the naval version designated F-4B and USAF F-4C. The first Air Force Phantom flew on 27 May 1963, exceeding Mach 2 on its maiden flight. The U.S. operated the F-4H-1 with J79GE2 and 2A engines of 16,100 lbf thrust, and later builds receiving -8 engines. A total of 45 F-4s were built and none saw combat, and most ended up as test training aircraft. The USN and USMC received the first definitive Phantom, the F-4B, which was equipped with the Westinghouse APQ-72 radar, a Texas Instruments AAA-4 infrared search and track pod under the nose, and an AJB-3 bombing system, and powered by J79GE8, 8A and 8B engines of 10,900 lbf dry and 16,950 lbf afterburner, with the first flight on 25 March 1961. 649 F-4Bs were built, with deliveries beginning in 1961, and VF-121 pacemakers receiving the first examples at NAS Miramar. The F-4J had improved air-to-air and ground attack capability. Deliveries began in 1966 and ended in 1972, with 522 built. It was equipped with J79GE10 engines with 17,844 lbf thrust, the Westinghouse and -10 Aruban Florence fire control system, a new integrated missile control system, and an AJB-7 bombing system for expanded ground attack capability. The F-4N with smokeless engines and F-4J aerodynamic improvements started in 1972 under a U.S. Navy-initiated refurbishment program called Project B-Line, with 228 converted by 1978. The F-4S model resulted from the refurbishment of 265 F-4Js with J79GE17 smokeless engines of 17,900 lbf, -10 billion Aruban Florence radar with digitized circuitry for improved performance and reliability, Honeywell and AVG-8 visual target acquisition set of ETAS, classified avionics improvements, airframe reinforcement, and leading-edge slats for enhanced maneuvering. The USMC also operated the RF-4B with reconnaissance cameras, with 46 built. Phantom II production ended in the United States in 1979 after 5,195 had been built. Of these, 2,874 went to the USAF, 1,264 to the Navy and Marine Corps, and the rest to foreign customers. The last U.S.-built F-4 went to South Korea, while the last F-4 built was an F-4EJ built by Mitsubishi Heavy Industries in Japan and delivered on 20 May 1981. As of 2008, 631 Phantoms were in service worldwide, while the Phantom also remains in use as a target drone operated by the U.S. military. World records. To show off the new fighter, the Navy led a series of record-breaking flights early in Phantom development. All in all, the Phantom set 16 world records. Except for Skyburner, all records were achieved in unmodified production aircraft. 5 of the speed records remained unbeaten until the F-15 Eagle appeared in 1975. Operation Top Flight. On 6 December 1959, the second XF-4H-1 performed a zoom climb to a world record 98,557 feet. Commander Lawrence E. Flint, Jr., U.S.N. accelerated his aircraft to Mach 2.5 at 47,000 feet and climbed to 90,000 feet at a 45 degrees angle. He then shut down the engines and glided to the peak altitude. As the aircraft fell through 70,000 feet, Flint restarted the engines and resumed normal flight. On 5 September 1960, an F-4H-1 averaged 1,216.78 miles per hour over a 500 km closed-circuit course. On 25 September 1960, an F-4H-1F averaged 1,390.24 miles per hour over a 100 km closed-circuit course. Fair Record File Number 8898. Operation Lana. To celebrate the 50th anniversary of naval aviation on 24 May 1961, Phantoms flew across the continental United States in under 3 hours and included several tanker refuelings. The fastest of the aircraft averaged 869.74 miles per hour and completed the trip in 2 hours 47 minutes, earning the pilot, Lieutenant Richard Gordon, U.S.N. and Rio, Lieutenant Bobby Young, U.S.N., a 1961 Bendix Trophy. Operation Sageburner. On 28 August 1961, a F-4H-1F Phantom II averaged 1,452.777 km per hour over a 3 miles course, flying below 125 feet at all times. Commander J. L. Felsman, U.S.N. was killed during the first attempt at this record on 18 May 1961 when his aircraft disintegrated in the air after pitch damper failure. Operation Skyburner. On the 22nd of December 1961, a modified Phantom with water injection set an absolute world record speed of 1,606.342 miles per hour. On the 5th of December 1961, another Phantom set a sustained altitude record of 66,443.8 feet. Operation High Jump. A series of time-to-altitude records was set in early 1962 to 34.523 seconds to 3,000 meters, 48.787 seconds to 6,000 meters, 61.629 seconds to 9,000 meters, 77.156 seconds to 12,000 meters, 114.548 seconds to 15,000 meters, 178.5 seconds to 20,000 meters, 230.44 seconds to 25,000 meters, and 371.43 seconds to 30,000 meters. Design. Overview. The F-4 Phantom is a tandem-seat fighter bomber designed as a carrier-based interceptor to fill the U.S. Navy's fleet defense fighter role. Innovations in the F-4 included an advanced pulse Doppler radar and extensive use of titanium in its airframe. Despite imposing dimensions and a maximum takeoff weight of over 60,000 pounds, the F-4 has a top speed of Mach 2.23 and an initial climb rate of over 41,000 feet per minute. The F-4's 9 external hardpoints have a capability of up to 18,650 pounds of weapons, including air-to-air and air-to-surface missiles, and unguided, guided, and thermonuclear weapons. Like other interceptors of its day, the F-4 was designed without an internal cannon. The baseline performance of a Mach 2 class fighter with long range and a bomber-sized payload would be the template for the next generation of large and light middleweight fighters optimized for daylight air combat. Flight characteristics. In air combat, the Phantom's greatest advantage was its thrust, which permitted a skilled pilot to engage and disengage from the fight at will. The massive aircraft, designed to fire radar-guided missiles from beyond visual range, lacked the agility of its Soviet opponents and was subject to adverse yaw during hard maneuvering, although thus subject to irrecoverable spins during aileron rolls. Pilots reported the aircraft to be very communicative and easy to fly on the edge of its performance envelope. In 1972, the F-4E model was upgraded with leading-edge slats on the wing, greatly improving high angle of attack maneuverability at the expensive top speed. The J-79 engines produced noticeable amounts of black smoke, a severe disadvantage in that the enemy could spot the aircraft. This was solved on the F-4S fitted with the -10A engine variant, which used a smokeless combustor. The F-4's biggest weakness, as it was initially designed, was its lack of an internal cannon. For a brief period, doctrine held that turning combat would be impossible at supersonic speeds and little effort was made to teach pilots air combat maneuvering. In reality, engagements quickly became subsonic, as pilots would slow down in an effort to get behind their adversaries. Furthermore, the relatively new heat-seeking and radar-guided missiles at the time were frequently reported as unreliable and pilots had to use multiple shots just to hit one enemy fighter. To compound the problem, rules of engagement in Vietnam precluded long-range missile attacks in most instances, as visual identification was normally required. Many pilots found themselves on the tail of an enemy aircraft but too close to fire short-range Falcons or sidewinders. Although by 1965 USAF F-4Cs began carrying Su-16 external gun pods containing a 20mm M61A1 Vulcan Gatling cannon, USAF cockpits were not equipped with lead computing gun sights until the introduction of the Su-23, virtually assuring a miss in a maneuvering fight. Some Marine Corps aircraft carried two pods for strafing. In addition to the loss of performance due to drag, combat showed the externally mounted cannon to be inaccurate and less frequently bore-sighted, yet far more cost-effective than missiles. The lack of a cannon was finally addressed by adding an internally mounted 20mm M61A1 Vulcan on the F-4E. Costs note. Original amounts were in 1965 United States dollars. The figures in these tables have been adjusted for inflation.